Northern Power Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Hello, I'm Sam Walker and welcome to the final episode of the Northern Power Women podcast for 2017. It's episode 6. You make what in your spare time? As ever, we've been touring the glorious North, talking to brilliant men and women about the challenges and issues they're facing in their work today. We hung out in Newcastle, where our live podcast panel was hosted this month by the winners of the 2017 Northern Power Women Award for Large Business, the one and only Sage. There we talked about female-only workspaces, whether feminism is alive and well, and curious projects people take on as their side hustles.
So the giddy crafter, she knits willy warmers in her spare time.
It's one of the most interesting discussions we've ever had. More of that to come. You'll also hear from a man who's passionate about mentoring, parenting and football, and isn't scared of taking a stand. It's the head of Northwest Regional Business for Vodafone, Rob Mukherjee.
I did have a couple of people who took negative views. So one was a peer of mine, a senior female leader, who said, Rob, are you not worried what that's going to do for your career? You're not worried what people will think? And I hadn't even registered why anyone would think bad of it. But when she said that, I said, no, absolutely not.
In Ask The Hive this month, a member of the Northern Power Women Power List asked if it was ever possible for both partners in a relationship to enjoy highly successful careers whilst also having children. You came up trumps with your advice.
The same as you would run any business, you have to run it as a team. So we all have our jobs. We have pink jobs and blue jobs. I do the blue ones, my husband does the pink ones because it works much better that way.
But first, as Christmas rushes towards us in all its tinselly glory, it's been a busy month as ever for Northern Power Women founder Simone Roche. So let's get some news from HQ.
Episode 6, how did that happen? A big thanks to Sam Walker and What Goes On Media for getting us to this point. And thanks to all of you for your reviews and your ratings. Please do keep them coming. We love hearing from you. This month, we've received a record 950 nominations for the Northern Power Women Awards. It's been wonderful to see so many of you celebrating success, and we're delighted to receive a big number of nominations for our male changemakers too. The next phase is for our 40 judges to come together, category by category, for the unenviable task of selecting a medium list and then ultimately a short list, which will be announced in the new year. Good luck to all. We've hosted a number of events this month, including our Reconnect event with Vodafone, which showcased opportunities for returners to the workplace across a number of local companies, including Manchester Airport Group and Travel Counsellors, all supporting those who've been on a career break. We've also collaborated with the Bank of America for our Women in Tech event in Chester, with over 120 attendees who were treated to 2 outstanding speakers and a senior leaders panel discussion. Big thanks to Di Keller and Sage UK, our large business winners, for hosting this month's live recording of the podcast, which you'll hear shortly. We've also been in the news talking gender-neutral job descriptions with an opinion piece with Total Jobs, and I've also been interviewed by the Financial Times on the subject too. Northern Power Women's also spent 72 hours in India supporting We Are the City Rising Stars Awards in Mumbai and spreading the importance of celebrating role models globally. Thanks to Northern Rail for being our latest sponsor for the Northern Power Women Awards. If you'd like to sponsor or support, please get in touch. connect@northernpowerwomen.com. We're also excited to be launching a series of power circles across the North next year in partnership with KPMG. We'll share more details soon. And please allow me to thank you again for your support and to wish you the happiest of the festive seasons and a buoyant new year.
Resplendent as ever in fairy lights, the one and only Simone Roche. And remember, you can follow everything that Northern Power Women does online at northernpowerwomen.com and also on Twitter at North Power Women. Now, to this month's discussion panel, and thanks to our brilliant hosts in Newcastle, Sage.
What an
Absolutely amazing welcome, and thank you so much to the wonderful Sage in Newcastle, who are our hosts today for episode 6 of the Northern Power Women podcast. And please welcome to our panel today Adele Mitchinson. She's a design consultant for VentureStream and of course a Northern Power Women creative director and Northeast ambassador. Also Karen Ainley, who's at VP for product development here at Sage, and Craig Cumpson, who's associate partner for EY, sponsor of the Newcastle Women's Network. Thank you all. Well, they're a feisty crowd in the Northeast today. So, as ever, we're going to have 3 topics of conversation today, and this is about starting a conversation. So really hope that all the issues we bring up today and the opinions you're going to hear and the experiences you're going to hear, you can continue talking about them amongst your own and your own networks, at your own place of work, wherever the heck you fancy, in the pub, down the gym, whatever you like. So let's start then. The first one today is about a hashtag that's been appearing on social media a lot recently, and hopefully we're going to cast a bit of light on it. What is side hustle and why is it gaining so much attention? Craig, if I can start with you.
I guess for me, it just sounds like people are, reluctant to start a new business and maybe don't know how to get started. So there seems to be a lot of people out there looking at small ventures, something in their spare time. And quite easily, within EY, we can easily see businesses that start from very, very small, buying a couple of things online, selling them, buying another 4, and all of a sudden you could have an entrepreneur in the making. So I think it's we see a lot of small entrepreneurs in the UK and certainly in the Northeast as well. So I think it certainly could be an area where we see a lot more entrepreneurialism, and, it could be a way of just generating greater kind of momentum in the economy as well.
So, Karen, do you see it as it says on the tin, really, a side hustle? It doesn't have to interfere or take over from your main career and your main working hours, but something that's in addition to. Can that work?
Yeah, I think that, it's the new word for sideline, isn't it? Years ago, we used to refer to people having a sideline, and I think now it's about dipping your toe in the water, trying something, learning fast, failing fast if it doesn't work, and then moving on. And I think the digital age that we live in, and the presence of digital ways of working and the ways we interact, and also being able to do this from home now, means that it's something that you can just do as a sideline or a side hustle instead of actually having to invest, as Craig said, lots of money in it and lots of time and effort. You can try it and it may be a success, it might not, it might fail. You can learn from it, move on and try something different.
Adele, is this something that you've come across? You work in a creative industry. Is this something you've seen people doing more and more of?
Definitely. I think, I'm privileged to work in an environment and within a business that it promotes entrepreneurial atmosphere and thoughts and processes like that. I myself have been able to bring business ideas to the company and use that as my hashtag side hustle. I also know people that I work with that there's can I name drop in here? Mm. Can I? So the Giddy Crafter, she knits willy warmers in her spare time, which is a side hustle. Now,
there's my idea gone.
So it can literally be something that you do of a nighttime sitting watching telly, but everybody finds their own groove and their own vibe, and I love that the fact that it's we banter this word around quite a lot, but millennials, it's an idea that not everyone has to be an entrepreneur, but you can use this side hustle to get to your next step or to learn something new, as you just said.
Has anyone here got a side hustle? Do you know what? I'm going to lunge towards you.
I've got 2 businesses. I run workshops on sort of personal development subjects, and I'm a counsellor and a coach, and I've written a book and got another one in the process. And then I work here at Sage for 3 days a week as well, so I kind of balance the 2.
Well, you kind of got 3 going on then, haven't you?
Really, yeah. Busy lady. But yeah, it works really well because it means that working for an established company means I've got the bills paid, I've got money coming in, and then I can kind of concentrate my free time on my business and building that up slowly, which is great, which is perfect.
I'm aware you're in your place of work, but try and answer honestly. In an ideal world, would you ditch the day job and follow the dream of your own businesses?
Well, I think definitely that's always the dream for an entrepreneur. I think for me personally, so I actually handed my notice in at work last September with the aim to do that, knowing that it would be a complete jump into the unknown. And Sage very kindly sort of said to me, look, we know that that's going to be tough for you. Why don't you stay on and do part-time instead?
Wow.
Okay, don't stay full-time, but stay part-time and we'll kind of support you as you make that transition. So, I've been completely honest all the way through that it is a transition and at some point I'll make the jump entirely. But yeah, one day that's the game, that's the end goal. But for now, I'm half and half.
Amazing. Kind of the dream, that, isn't it? To be supported without having to take that huge leap off the cliff. Any other side hustles? I'm going to lunge down through these rows of people. One more side hustle. Yes.
Hi there. I actually am a digital marketing manager for a large law firm back in Teesside. My side hustle, I work with my son. We've got a new digital marketing company called The Social Gene that we both work in together. My firm that I work for are really supportive of that. They know that I do that. They know that I've got passions outside of the business. I also write 2 blogs as well. I have one with my son called The Northern Niche, if anybody's interested. And so, yeah, I like balancing them both. It's great.
And so, what's your name, son?
Declan.
I wasn't saying what's your name, son. I was like, son, what's his, so Declan, the businesses that you do with your mum, are they your main job, or again, is it more of a side job for you?
I had a full-time job coming out of university, and I've now gone part-time, and then the jobs are part-time with The Social Gene and The Northern Niche as well. Yeah, but it's good to have a experienced business mentor, especially who's my mum. I mean, there's good sides and bad sides, but yeah.
We know Declan, yeah.
I love what he brings to it, though. He's got tons of ideas that I just would never think of, so it's great having the both of us in it.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, before we move on, final word from our panellists, really, and I mean, interesting, Karen, to hear Sage's take on if a member of staff has a side hustle, that you're absolutely supportive of that. Craig, do you think that some businesses might not be quite so understanding, though, and some people might feel a little bit of a need to keep this a bit private and a bit secret?
I think that's true. It's possible. I think it's what you need is an organisation which is open to flexible ways of working. I think if you're an organisation which operates a flexible working policy, then that is the kind of environment where these type of small businesses can thrive as well. And so certainly when just kind of listen to the people in the audience there, I'm aware of 3 colleagues within EY who do have other things that they do in their spare time as well. And I'm aware of 2 of them. Actually, one of them is now doing hers full time. But certainly, it does appear to me that flexible working is the key to all this. If you can operate flexibly, if you can work flexibly, whether it's for looking after kids or looking after loved ones, or to have your side hustle as well, I think that's the important thing.
Well, do listen back to episode 4 of the Northern Power Women podcast, where you can hear the CEO of TimeWise, which is an organisation all about flexible working, talking on exactly that subject. Little plug for ourselves there. Fabulous stuff. Okay, well, question number 2 today comes from a really interesting article that we spotted in Business News. And this is about a new female-only workspace, which has opened up in 2 locations in New York City. Now, they've got 1,500 active members, and even though they've only been open a couple of months, they've got a waiting list of 8,000 women who want to come and join this women-only workspace club. I'd be interested to hear from you, really. Would you welcome this? Would you welcome female-only workspaces? And what do you think the pros and the cons might be, Karen?
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's like single-sex education. Is it right or is it wrong? And it's not really, in my mind, it's not really a real-world situation, because I'm all for equal rights and women having the power to do things, but is that taking it that step too far? Are we going to the stage, the opposite direction, like we used to have working men's clubs that women couldn't go to? Are we saying there's an area where only women can work and men aren't there? And I think you need both sides of that brain to be able to develop great ideas and to work. And I think that kind of the multi-gender, race kind of situation, from what I've experienced at Sage, works a lot better, in my opinion. So as we've grown into a more global company, it's really insightful to work with people from different areas and different genders as well. So I'm a little bit, I get why it would be good, and it would be good to have this little pamper area. You can go and have a spa and you can do ladies' things. But I wonder if you're missing something. I wonder if that women-only environment is maybe taking it a step too far. And would you miss that male input into some of the, the discussions and some of the working practices?
You're not going to put your name on the list?
No, I won't be joining that 8,000 list of people, no.
Adele, women-only workspaces.
It's a really interesting one, and something that I thought about years ago, about having an environment where women feel comfortable and available to work together and having a very proactive environment like that. However, on the descriptor, one of the things was a place to get changed, a pamper area, a nap space, and I can't remember the other thing, but there was a fourth thing. Now, any bloke that I talk to would equally enjoy those things, so I don't think they're exclusive to women. Interestingly, and we've had this conversation before, but scientifically, our bodies are colder. We know that. So, you know, there's always an ongoing debate, and I'm sure that there's probably a lot of men and women nodding here saying, you know, the temperature in the office is always, you know, either two degrees too high or 2 degrees too low. So where there's always a positive to make an environment more comfortable for each sex, I don't think there's any place of making it female only or male only, because as you were just saying, it's not a representation of society, and it's not a representation, of what we want to have as in a workplace, and equality it works both ways.
Craig, is it a bit hot in here for you? I mean, it's funny that Adele was mentioning that, because there has been actually a lot of scientific research about the fact that women prefer a warmer working temperature than men. No scientists in the audience can back me up, but no, there really is. But I'm interested to hear from you on this notion of female-only workspaces, and I think it would be received very differently in the business world if it was an official male-only workspace in 2017 as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, just kind of echoing what my colleagues here have just said, the best performing teams are diverse teams. And so I see it within EY. It's interesting to hear that we've had the same from Sage as well. The more diverse your teams, the more successful you're going to be. And certainly when, through working for EY such a long time, we see research and evidence which suggests that that's true. So if you've got more diversity within your board of directors, within the senior management teams of any organisation, they will be more successful. So I think if you have a female-only area, whilst there will be some amazing ideas generated, which blokes probably won't, you'd be better joining everyone together to get that kind of diverse range of opinions and views. And for myself, I wouldn't subscribe to a male-only environment, and I certainly wouldn't subscribe to a female-only one either.
Do you think there are conversations? Do you think there are conversations, though, Karen, that maybe happen when there are just women in a room that don't happen when there are men in a room, even if it's a business situation?
I think there's conversations that only happen between women, but I wouldn't say there were work conversations. I think, you know, women, you tend to have a different kind of gossip than you do with your male colleagues. But is that healthy? You know, I'm not sure. And I think it's hard. You know, I've ran teams that have been full of women, and I've ran teams that are a mixture of male and female colleagues, and you get a far better output, in my opinion, when it's a mixed team and less conflict than you do when it's a team full of women. So I think it's not something I would definitely sign up for, no.
We've got men and women in the audience. Is there anyone in the audience who would prefer to work in a team of just their gender? No. Nobody at all. Not even if there was a pamper area. I'm going to throw you the nap area. No? No one up for it. Someone call New York. There's no more on the waiting list at all.
The only thing I was going to say there is I do wonder whether New York and the United States need to catch up to the UK, because I do think if there's a need for this in New York, is it because they are further behind than where we are right now? That's the only thing I was thinking of, because it seems a bit bizarre that you would have that and they'd be kind of, and there's so many people subscribing to it. Is it because they don't have as diverse teams as what we have in the UK, and maybe they're just lagging behind a bit?
Well, look, you continue the conversation. Of course, this is what we all start here on the Northern Power Women podcast, and we'd really love to hear from you. You can get in touch, tweet your replies at North Power Women, or any emails, podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Right, here we are, on to our final question. And this is a question that comes round perpetually, it seems, and it seems that everyone has their own feelings about this subject, good and bad. And I want to start with you on this one, please, Adele. Are you a feminist? And if so, what does it mean to you?
Well, it goes without saying that I am a feminist. However, it's not a word that I think... I'm disappointed it exists in 2017. I think it should be an archaic piece of lexis that we no longer need, because it's stating the bleeding obvious. Like, to say that way, feminist is somebody that believes in equal rights is basically the same as saying everybody should be equal. This word shouldn't exist anymore. It should be resigned to the history books. Unfortunately, it's not, and it exists, and I'm okay with that. But when I was growing up, and I'm talking younger and teens, a feminist was bra burning, doesn't shave, is all of these horrible stereotypic things. And I thought, well, I wear a bra, and I don't really dislike men, so does that make me a terrible feminist? And that made me feel that I couldn't then go for. I obviously didn't believe in equal rights, but that's not what it is. It's about shaping your own idea of that and shaping who you are. Just because that I do these things doesn't make me any less of a feminist than anybody else. It just means that I have a different interpretation of it, and just as long as I believe that I'm as good or as equal as a man, then I think that's okay with me.
Do you think the word needs to change? Do we need a new word?
I just don't think that we need it. It's just, if you believe in equality and you believe that we're all equal, then there is no word that's needed to say that. It's just, we are people and we are all the same, really. Go on,
Craig, are you a feminist?
It's a good question. It's one I never ever thought I'd be asked in my life. Very similar to what Adele's just said there. I think it's all about equal opportunity. And I think, so I've got a daughter, she's 17, she's going to uni next year, and she's my firstborn. I've got a little boy who's 11, and I would hate for her to be in a world where there wasn't equal opportunity for her. So now I'm fortunate to work in an organisation where we do promote equal opportunity. We've got our women's network, we've got various D&I networks, and I think, in kind of from a pure business sense, that diversity breeds success. Simple as that, as well as being the right thing to do. So am I a feminist? I've got absolutely no idea, but I'm all about equal opportunity.
But it's interesting that you obviously feel some, I don't know if nervousness is the right word, or some tension around saying yes to that question. Does that, I suppose, reflect on what that word has come to mean for some people?
Possibly. Or as well as what Adele's just said there, could that word be kind of confined to history books now? Because I think the world has moved on. I mean, I've been at EY 20 years, and I've seen some huge progress in our kind of gender balance within senior ranks. So when I joined the firm, there were only male partners in the office. We now have, in fact, our office management partner, Sandra, joined us last year, so clearly female. We've got another partner in the office who's female. And if I look to my service line across the country, our people leader is female. Joe Santon, who leads our Entrepreneur Year program, female. So there's lots of visible role models and leaders for the younger people to kind of look at and be inspired by. So I think, again, I'll reiterate again, I think I'm just fortunate to be in an organisation that promotes that kind of thing.
Karen, let me ask you this same question finally. The word feminist and feminism seems very loaded for a lot of people. Would you stand up and say, yes, I'm a feminist?
No, I think I would stand up and say I'm just about equal rights, and I'm kind of with Adele and Craig on this one. I think the word should be eradicated. I don't know why we still have it. And I think, in this generation, we're in a much better place than we were, say, 20 years ago. I've got a son who's at uni, and he would never think that women were any less or had any less chances than he would have, because that's kind of the world that is being brought up in. So to still be having this kind of bra burning discussion, I think it is irrelevant now, and I don't feel like I'm disadvantaged at Sage or in my personal life for being a lady or a girl or a woman or whatever we want to say. I think I've got the same rights. I get the same treatment as my male colleagues or some of my male friends, and I think it's a word that is dated and we don't need anymore. So if someone said, "Are you a feminist?" I would still think back and think, well, no, because I'm not doing all of the bra burning tactics and things like that. But do I stand up for equal rights, whether it's on gender or race? Absolutely.
I suppose we know that in November it's Equal Pay Day. One of the first weeks in November is the time when statistics show women stop earning, essentially. So we work the rest of the year for free. And I know that isn't amongst every single job, but if we look at the statistics around pay, there is still a gender pay gap. And you haven't held back, but I wonder whether that's also to do with your race, to do with your education, to do with the opportunities you've been given. Can we say that amongst all women, that they all have those opportunities, would you say?
I mean, hopefully not. But if that is the case, and if there's still environments out there and organisations out there that are treating people differently, then it's great that we've got this day, and it's great that we're bringing this to the forefront now. But I do think it's different from feminism. You know, I left school. I didn't go to university. I came from a one-parent family. I was the oldest child of 4. I went on to a YTS scheme, which is the equivalent of the apprentices now. I still did college. I still did all of my exams. And I never felt I was, even 20 odd years ago, I didn't feel like I was treated any differently because of that. And I don't think it's any different now. We've got a lot of female apprentices coming into the workplace. We've got a lot of female leaders. In fact, my boss is one of our biggest advocates of female leaders. And I think most of the leaders on his team are female. So I think it is a word that we should eradicate. And I think, if we still have pay gaps, gender pay gaps, then it's great that it's being pulled out and it's being called out, because it shouldn't be there today.
Little interesting show of hands in the audience. Who here would consider themselves a feminist? If you put your hand up, say if you are a feminist. Quite small, only about a quarter of people, actually. Anyone here thinks the name should change? Just over half of people. Well, look, as ever, it's been a brilliant conversation starter. Do continue your conversations. As I always say, get in touch and let us know what you think. It'd be wonderful to hear from you at North Power Women on Twitter, or, of course, podcast at northernpowerwomen.com. Well, look, we had an absolutely rousing hello, so let's have an equally rousing goodbye. And a big thank you to Adele Mitchinson, to Karen Ailey and to Craig Cumpson. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who came along to be part of the audience. Next month we're in Leeds. After that we're in Manchester. We would love you to join us, so do head to northernpowerwomen.com for more details. Now, it's time to delve into the mind of an individual who lives with real purpose and hear about what drives their passion in business. This month, fanfare, it's the first man who's appeared in this feature on the podcast, Vodafone's head of Northwest Regional Business, Rob Mukherjee. Rob is a man who urges his workforce to spend less time in the office. All will be explained, and is also passionate about mentoring and gender equality. We started talking about the fact that Rob's career was built in sales, traditionally a very male-dominated environment.
Yeah, that's right. It is very male-dominated, and I think that's one of the things I've been really keen to address with things like getting more women into sales, getting more women promoted into sales careers, and getting more women doing what they actually believe they can do.
So how do you do that? Do you change the working environment, or do you change women's attitudes to how they work and perform?
I think the first thing is to create an environment where people feel they can genuinely be what they want to be, and they can generally do what they want to do. And I think there's still a long way to go in that. I think there's still far too many people, women and men in fact, who are worried what other people will think, and therefore make decisions about their careers and actually therefore their lives that are to please other people and not themselves.
That's a tough nut to crack.
It is a tough nut to crack, and I think there's two things you can do. One thing I believe, and I try to do in terms of mentoring in a way, is get people to be open about what their genuine aspirations are, what they genuinely want to do. Forget Vodafone, for example, who happen to be, our employer, and forget what other people think. What do you really, really want to do? And I get them to tell me why, because that means they have to justify. Are they telling me the truth in terms of what they want to do, or are they saying it because they think it's what I want to hear? And I get them to say, what does that look like then? What does it feel like? What does it smell like in terms of what you want to do? And I really hone in on that before then moving into, right, I believe you now. Let's work on how we do that.
That's really interesting, because quite often we have a vision for ourselves and where we want our career to go, and we get there and think, I don't quite fit in to this framework. How can I change myself to fit into that framework? And you think that's the wrong way around. He's shaking his head. Yeah,
I think it's absolutely the wrong way around. And I've seen people who say, I'm supposed to go and get promoted into that role now, aren't I? Or I'm supposed to go and do this job now, aren't I? That's what you're supposed to do. That's how work and career works, isn't it? Which is, to me, an agonisingly terrible approach. It's not, there's no book that's saying you have to do this, you have to do that. Just look inside yourself and decide what you as a person want to do, and you'll feel so much more energised. you'll make your own plans. It's easier to build a plan that you believe in than something where you're trying to fit into somebody else's plan, without a doubt.
It's so hard, though. There'll be people listening to this who might have strived for a long time to get to a role. They've got there and gone, whoa, it's not for me. And you can look back on the last 10 years and go, well, I can't quit now because that would have nullified the effort I've made over the last 10 years.
Yeah, and this is where I think, while I've said, every individual has to take their own responsibility, I also think that managers, leaders, people in general, society, have responsibility to do the right things and have responsibility to be role models and show that they're doing things they believe in. So, for me, for example, that's all about family and, my life. And, I remember 5 years ago, I decided to start taking parental leave, which everybody's entitled to. It's an employee right. Not enough people know about it, that you can take this leave.
Let's just stop there for a minute and press pause on that, because you spoke about this at MPW Live this year, of course, in Leeds. Parental leave. A lot of people will hear that phrase, Rob, and go, oh, that's when you have a baby and you're allowed a bit of time off after the baby's born. Please explain, because I'll be honest, this was a revelation to me.
Well, this is the thing. So you have, what you're describing there is maternity, paternity leave when you've got, babies or, very new, additions into your family. Parental leave, which is a government policy, is that every parent with children under the age of 18 is entitled to up to 4 weeks unpaid additional leave every year. They're entitled up to 18 weeks per child. So that means if you've got 2 kids, 36 weeks.
Potentially, yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't know about it, which I spoke about at Northern Power Women Live. But then when people do start to realise it's available, they start to, find reasons not to take it. Now, of course, because it's unpaid, that may be a challenge. But for a lot of people, they could afford to take a 50-week salary instead of a 52-week salary, let's say, and work out how to do that. The biggest and most galling challenge I see is that people don't take that time with their children because they believe it will damage their career and because they believe their colleagues will think worse of them or even their managers will think worse of them.
Well, this is why, of course, there was research recently, wasn't there, about the number of men who don't take their full 2 weeks paternity even, because there is that incredible pressure. Don't leave the office, someone will jump into your shoes.
Yeah, and it's, firstly, it's unacceptable. Government policy says it's unacceptable because you have, if you take 4 weeks off, you've got to have your own job back. But we all know that it's not about policy; it's about behaviours, it's about attitudes. What I'm pleased to say is, as I've continually evangelised this, I see more and more people taking it. And people, I suppose the sad thing is, people who could have taken it before and might have missed out, they wish they had. But I still get the odd phone call from people who I may not have even met before, because Vodafone is such a huge company, who say, I'd love to, but how do I justify it to my colleagues? How do I justify it to my manager? So people are still scared that it'll be seen as the wrong thing to do. And, the big point I make here is society saying that we're first and foremost work machines, and as a secondary point, we can be good parents?
I can understand a company like the one that you work for, Rob, Vodafone, if you decide to say, right, it's the summer holidays coming up, I'm taking 2 weeks annual leave and I'm going to take 2 weeks unpaid parental leave on top of that. Vodafone will go, OK, that's fine, because we have thousands of people working for us. As senior as you are, I can kind of hear the small and medium business owner listening to this thinking, if my staff did that, I couldn't function anymore.
And then it's in the planning, isn't it, in terms of if you're running a smaller business and you make that part of what you do, you plan for it and you run your business that way. And I can guarantee you that if you plan it well, firstly, you'll save some money, right? But that's not the point. You'll save some money because you're not having to pay for those unpaid weeks of leave. But your productivity will absolutely increase because your people feel more engaged. People talk about work-life balance, and I don't tend to use that term. I say that, work is just part of your life. It's all one integrated thing. You don't talk about home-life balance, so why talk about work-life balance? But those people will feel better in their lives and more productive, and they'll be more engaged as employees.
Have you had a different response from your male and female peers when you've announced, I'm taking some time off to spend with my children?
The first time I did it, and I can talk about these two examples, neither of whom are in Vodafone actually at the moment, but I did have a couple of people who took negative views. So one was a peer of mine, a senior female leader, who said, Rob, are you not worried what that's going to do for your career? You're not worried what people think. And I hadn't even registered why anyone would think bad of it. But when she said that, I said, no, absolutely not, because it's my life. It's there. I didn't go into the it's my right kind of thing. It's my employee right. It's just there. It's just another way of living, another way of working. Why should it be any different than holiday entitlement? Why should it be any different from normal paternity or maternity leave? But her view was that, okay, the policy says it, and yes, your employer says it's okay, but it's not really, is it? And you will be thought bad of it because you're less devoted to work.
Did that sort of strike the fear of God into you? Did you think, what have I done?
For me, it didn't actually at all, because I was so sure in myself in that reason. But I know with others it has. And actually, my boss at the time, when I did this first stint of parental leave, was very, very supportive. And the great news is he's also my boss again now, 5 years later. What did happen, though, when he moved on, I moved into a different role. The new boss that I got, who is not at Vodafone anymore, his first response was, Jesus wept. Well, you'll have to cancel it then, won't you? And that kind of made me go, wow. Now, in the end, I talked him round, but actually the immediate response was that.
It seems that you have to be incredibly self-assured of where you are in your career, confident about your own importance to the business and confidence in your own self as well, because a lot of people listening to that, Rob, would think, oh, well, I would have just backed down because how's that going to change? I guess with people like you keeping doing it.
And this is it. And I know that people can say, well, it's easier for you, Rob, because you're in a leadership position. And I totally accept that. And it shouldn't be the case that you have to be really confident and sure of yourself to then feel you can do it. I evangelise it heavily in Vodafone, especially in the northwest of England, where we have about 3,000 people now, and I can get close to them. And with my own team, I actually set my own business people within my team. I set my own people an objective of how are you going to spend more time with your family. If they do have children, I get them to set themselves an objective that says, over the next year, work out how you're going to do it.
And do men and women respond differently to that?
Not really, actually, not in my area, because once the penny's dropped with them, I've got mothers and fathers who are both doing it, and taking more time off and are delighted and find this new. It's like having this, this breakthrough moment of, God, there's a newfound angle to my life that I can now enjoy, and you know what? In the slightly fewer weeks of time they spend at work, they still produce at least as good results as if they'd worked the full year.
It's interesting, and the reason I keep asking you about how men respond and women, I suppose, is in a way a lot of men are telling me they feel shortchanged in a way, and for the same reasons that women feel quite angry. Because I've been asked by managers when I've taken on new roles, who's going to get your children from school? Are you going to be able to someone to deal with them after school? And men generally aren't asked those questions if they're dads when they take a new role. Are you going to have enough time spent with your kids? Whereas women are angry for being asked that. Do you think men should be angry for not being asked that in a way?
Should men feel angry for not being asked that? Not in my opinion. I don't think people should be asking that anyway. If ever I'm having that conversation with someone, it's not me who initiates that conversation. One thing I have observed is when I've recruited women into the business, something that women ask and men don't tend to is, I've got children. Is it okay if sometimes I turn up at 9:15 instead of 8:30? Is it okay if occasionally at the Christmas play, I take a couple of hours out? I would love the day to come when people don't feel the need to ask that as part of me offering them a job, let's say. Because it should just be taken as read. We should be managing. We should be managing and measuring based on outcomes, not just presence. It's what you deliver. From a men's perspective, I get asked less, but I think this is one of the known differences between men and women is that women probably do put themselves down more. They don't put their hands up for promotion as much as men, for example. But women I see tend to have more collaborative skills, tend to have more skills around empathy, which, by the way, coming back to the sales career, I think are very, very powerful skills. Men may ask, but they seem to ask about it in a less fearful way for some reason. And maybe one of those reasons is, unfortunately, however many thousands of years of history.
I want to talk to you now about mentoring, because I know that mentoring is something you're incredibly passionate about. And you've got a funny story, in fact, about how really you got into mentoring. And it's via football. It is actually via football. And it actually relates to a lady who I'm down in London next Monday. I'm going to see her for the first time in about 5 years, actually. So when I was about 20, in fact, let me step back a bit. As a teenager, I'd always kind of had this, this feeling that inequality is clearly wrong. Mm-hmm. Being from Asian background and first generation British born, most of that had been around, the ethnic inequalities and racial inequalities, should I say. And I felt that, the fact was white is a privilege, is how it felt. From a gender perspective, I also knew that inequality was wrong. But in my head, feminism was anti-male, and I didn't really get involved. So I think to your question, the mentoring and my entry into feminism came through the same route. And what happened was, I used to play for a men's football team, and a friend of mine, Liz, became captain of the women's college football team, and she asked me if I could be their coach, which I was surprised at, honoured at, and I said yes. Now, what I found by working with Liz and this women's football team was that, unlike most men's teams that I had been part of, not one of them thought they were the next Pele or Maradona or George Best. There were no egos. They absolutely... they had an absolute passion for being the best they could possibly be and working as a team. And a really inspiring thing for me was they had absolute and unconditional trust in me as their coach. Pressure. It was pressure, but it was great, actually. And it was, it brought something out in me that I probably didn't realise I had and enjoyed so much, which was, trying to help people they can be the best they can be. And I found myself more emotionally attached to that women's team than any men's team I had ever been involved in. We won together, we struggled together, we lost together, we cried together, we celebrated together. And it really grew me as a person. And after that, I left with two things, I think. One was realising that, women are amazing in terms of, trying to do new things and break into new areas. Liz herself actually went on to be very successful, is now an MP. And I came out of that thinking, I want to do something that is helping people become the best they can be. And that stayed with me. It's interesting that you make the point about being a mentor actually improves you as well. And I think a lot of people might not realise that it's a symbiotic relationship. Oh, absolutely. I had a mentoring session 2 days ago, actually, with this actually happens to be with a man. And it's so inspiring because it's an equal partnership. There's no hierarchy there. It's about somebody opening up to you and sharing with you their ambitions. And that sparks things in you. It sparks ideas with you. It enables you to try things that are not part of your day-to-day management, because your mentee is not typically someone in your team. It's someone in a different part of the business, or could be someone in a different organisation. So it gives you a release from your own day-to-day objectives where you have no authority over this person. Their performance actually has no bearing on you, but you can start to have a dialogue about what they're doing in life. And it could actually be something that you just sat in a pub having a conversation about. It feels that enjoyable if you get it right. The chemistry is really important. You can sometimes have a mentee-mentor relationship where a company says, oh, this person needs a mentor, let's find them one. And then the chemistry isn't there. That chemistry is really important. So, Rob, if someone's listening to this who's in a senior management role who'd like to give mentoring a go, actually, how would they find somebody to connect with? I think making people aware, first of all, around your network that it's something you'd like to give a go. Then, by default, something will come along. And
I don't actively go out and say, oh, I need to find a mentor, It just kind of happens once people know that you are into that sort of stuff. And I think, like with a lot of things, once you start making clear that you want to do something, then stuff will happen, whether it be mentoring, whether it be, advancing a cause you believe in. Once you say something, it'll start to happen.
You're obviously in a senior management role now. Looking back on your career, Rob, is there anything, given another run around, you would do differently?
There really isn't anything I'd do differently. Actually, there's probably one thing. If I'd cottoned on to parental leave a little bit earlier, I probably would have taken some a bit earlier. Having said that, I've got my plan that says, because I've got 2 children, I'm going to make sure that by the time they're 18, I've used up every week that I'm entitled to. But in terms of my career, no regrets. I'm not the sort of person who has regrets anyway. Through where I've been in my career, it's enabled me not just to do great things at work, but to, because I happen to be working down south, I met my wife who happened to be from the north but working down south as well. So that just worked really well. Yeah, no regrets. Honestly, no regrets.
Many thanks to the terrific Rob Mukherjee. Something tells me he's going to be getting a lot of calls about mentoring. Now, if there's a man or a woman you would love to hear on this podcast, please get in touch. You can tweet us at North Power Women or email podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Thank you. So, before we bring the December episode to a close, it's time to find out your response to this month's Ask The Hive question, which came from Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I've got a question for Ask The Hive. As one half of a Northern Power Women Future Leader couple, I want to know whether you think it is possible to have 2 highly successful careers and children within one family.
I think yes, you can, but it does take a lot amount of organisation, and the same as you would run any business, you have to run it as a team. So we all have our jobs. We have pink jobs and blue jobs. I do the blue ones, my husband does the pink ones because it works much better that way. And also my boys, because they have to understand the responsibilities has been part of our family, that if they want all of the things that our wages and what we are as people that we get from the jobs that we do, they have to also give their commitment. I also think it makes us great role models for them because they can see what it's like to work, and I would like them to go forward into their future to have wives that worked or partners that worked, and to feel that it was comfortable and achievable to do all of that.
So I think yes. So me and my wife are both career driven, both work full time, and I have a daughter. She's 15 now, so it's a lot easier now. But I think the secret is around having those connections, that family unit that supports that. So I can honestly say we would have found it much more difficult than we have done had we not had a good family structure that, done the drop off to nursery, picked them up, and all the way through our schooling as well, which has enabled us to actually forge our careers. And I think you can't both be driven at the same time. So we've almost taken a sort of a leapfrog approach. So when I was driving my career forward, my wife was the period of stability, running the house, and vice versa. When she was driving her career, it was me that was stable and looking after and then doing the household. So yeah, I think it's possible. You just it takes a bit of planning and a lot of support.
My name is Sharon Sinclair Williams. I've always been extremely supported by my other half, my husband. I do think when you want to mix career and kids, you've got to keep talking. You've got to keep asking and talking, and also don't stop the conversation, really. If you need help, ask for it. I was listening to your previous podcast, and the lady, I forget her name, she said that if you need help, you've got to ask for it. Don't pretend that you can do everything all the time, because in my experience as well, you will just literally wear yourself out and you'll be absolutely no good to your career or your kids or your husband or your wife, whatever. So really just keep talking. I do think you can have it. It is hard work, but there should be no reason why we can't do it.
My gut feel is no, but I'm about to embark on that. So we're trying for children at the moment, and it's daunting to think how we're going to do it. And I think one of us is going to have to take a back seat while we have children at the young age. It'll probably be me who'll take the back seat, and then my husband later on. But we've only got this very small support network. My husband's family live in Germany, and therefore it's going to be difficult to do that. And I think it's difficult to have it all. So it's good to have role models. It's really good to have role models to see how other people tackle it. But going into that journey, it looks like the answer is going to be no from the outset, but you never know.
So my other half and I have been talking about having children, about what we're going to do now. I'm probably very much at the beginning of my career trajectory, and I'm very much the sort of person that does everything 100%. I'm from a very, very different family setup than he is. He's from a traditional farming family, so his mum is very much at home in the house looking after him and his 3 brothers that he's always had. And I'm actually terrified of having children because I think it will either put my career on the back burner or I won't be a good mum. And I have to consciously tell myself that I can do both. And it was actually really helpful that my mentor gave me the book Lean In, just as I was reading the chapter on you can have a career and you can have children at the same time and you can be bloody good at both. So I'm looking at it as more of a challenge than something I have to shy away from either. I'm looking at it and thinking, right, okay, how am I going to make this work, and how is this going to be a skill that I can learn to really be an effective woman in the workplace and be an effective mother? Because it's something that you get scared into when you're a woman, and then you're going to have children. So how are you going to manage, and who's going to do all the school runs, and how are you going to make it all work? Does anyone ever ask a man that, how they're going to make their job work and make children work? It's just accepted that it just happens. So that's how I'm looking at it. But he's very, very supportive, so he would tell me that if I need to go away and work, then that's what will have to happen. And he's a very good facilitator of everything. So I think his answer would be, well, you just make it work. And I think that's the mindset that women need to take on, because we're constantly asked by maybe the older generations in our family and grandmothers, and oh yes, well, when I was your age I was doing this and raising this and husband went down the pit. That's not how we are anymore. And I think we need to take these sort of stereotypes and these old ideals and put them and reclaim them and put them into a new frame and repackage them for the younger generations.
So I'm one half of a gay couple, and my wife and I, for us, success means having a work-life balance, and that's nothing to do with being a woman. That's to do with wanting to have health and fun, and not just being successful about making money and being powerful. So the children thing isn't an issue for us. We don't have kids, but we have a dog. So we have to keep an eye on the dog and keep an eye on us, and that's the most important thing for me. Success is about keeping an eye on our little family unit and making sure we're happy. It took a huge amount of effort because we had to leave London to have that successful balance that we wanted. I was working 50, 60 hours a week, quite a senior person in my job down in London. My wife was doing the same, and you had the commute time on top. So we had to move. So the effort, it's about communication between us, and it's about assessing what our values and what's important to us. And we did a lot of work on that, which is actually really, really important. And if you want to be successful, whether you want to have a highly financially successful business, you need to do a lot of work, and it's the same with the success that we wanted. So we had to move, and we sold up shop in London and came up to the wonderful north, and we love it here. So I think we're successful.
Yeah, I think it is. So I come from, my 2 parents are highly successful. One's a CEO and one's the director of a website. And I think it is absolutely possible. I don't feel like we've missed out on anything. I don't feel like they were absent parents, which I sometimes think is the terminology used when you go out to work. And we actually had this conversation in the office the other day about whether or not you can, as a woman more so, go to work and then still have children. And one of the women said, I absolutely love my kids to pieces, but I also love myself, and I love the fact that I can have a career, and at work I am a better mum because I go to work. And I was like, actually, do you know what, yeah, I agree. I don't think there should be this stigma that if you go to work you're any different, because actually you're a product of your environment, aren't you? And I would say, yeah, you can.
Yes, I think that it is possible. I think for my personal circumstances, I rely heavily on family, so I'm really lucky that I've got a strong network. I think I always say to my husband, it's one of the positives that came from my parents separating, is that I have 2 sets of babysitters, so, you know, the silver lining. But yeah, it's the same, so that I've probably, my career probably took a bit of a backseat when I was knew we were going to be trying for a family and then taking time away from work, and then knowing that I was probably going to try and have another child. So probably over a period of 3 or 4 years, I took a step back in my career and just stayed where I was. My husband in that time has then progressed his career, so he is really successful. My youngest daughter has just started reception, and so it's given me an opportunity now. I've started a new job just a few months ago within Virgin Money, and now I've got the opportunity that the children are both at school to be able to do that. So yes, I do think it is possible, but again, it's with the support, and planning. Yeah.
As ever, thank you so much for your insight and your wisdom. And of course, if you have a question you'd like to ask, we would love to hear from you. Just get in touch. Email podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Now, for this coming month, we're asking you for some very important advice, as the question of cash and how to get it comes from Collet.
I believe I deserve a pay rise, but I really don't know how to go about asking. Can the Hive help with any hints or tips on how to approach this?
In a year where the gender pay gap has been discussed like never before, how would you respond to Collet? What advice and tips do you have when asking for more money at work? Men and women, please do get in touch. You can send a voice memo to podcast@northernpowerwomen.com or open up WhatsApp on your phone. You can add the Northern Power Women podcast on 07928 387 712. That's 07928 387 712, and you can send us your thoughts that way by clicking on the little microphone icon. Now, if you need those details again, you can find them online at northernpowerwomen.com. So there we have it, the end of a year and the end of episode 6 of the Northern Power Women podcast. Please do leave us a rating wherever you get your podcast from. And also, please do put a link to the Northern Power Women podcast into the Christmas stocking of everyone you've ever met. The next episode will arrive for you on January the 3rd, 2018. Until then, this is the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm Sam Walker, and this has been a What Goes On media production for Northern Power Women.